You look foolish.
Okay, what's up? We're back.
Yes, yes, yes. We
Yes,
are
we
back.
are.
We are back.
We are.
Yes.
And we have, there is just so much going on.
So much going on.
Yes, there is. And so, I have even more to talk about migration, and we're moving over to the state of Israel. I guess kind of the general theme about migrants being treated like shit. And okay, so in the state of Israel, they have nearly 40,000 African migrants in Israel continue to suffer from the laws, and a law was passed in May 2017 which requires every employer to deduct a fifth of the migrant's wage and deposit into a special account, which can only be accessible after the African migrant has departed from the country. So I don't even see how that can be. That should not be legal, okay? Because it should be there's been threats of illegal deportation. I mean, they're asylum seekers. So by doing that, you're basically saying that they're not going to get asylum. So that's pretty fucked up as well. And basically, and so I'm going to move over to another one of my favorite topics, combined, which is the return of artifacts. And I have a note about. So we've talked about some of the Ethiopian treasures. So we've been talking about that quite a bit. And so the they are now going to be returned to Addis Ababa in Ethiopia for a show. And so I was reading an article by the director of the Victoria and Albert Museum, where all this stuff is kept, and he was saying we need to tread carefully along a path of total restitution dictated by a political timetable. Okay, well, it's like, well, of course it's political. This is a political issue, and how long are you going to wait? Okay, this is just another one like, okay, wait. There remains something essentially valuable about the ability of museums to position objects beyond particular cultural or ethnic identities, curate them within a broader intellectual or aesthetic lineage, and situate them within a wider, richer framework of relationships while allowing free and open access. Well, that's really nice, Mr. Victoria and Albert Museum. Mr. Victoria and Albert Museum, but you need to ask the Ethiopians about that.
Right.
So, and about the beyond cultural or ethnic identities. Well, that's not your, that's not your judgment. That's not your call to make. These are cultural artifacts, and that's how people feel about them. So, for a museum like the V&A, to decolonize is to decontextualize. A more nuanced understanding of empire is needed than the politically driven pathways of good or bad. Okay, so one of the things he was saying was basically, this is some gall. This is some balls. He was saying that, like, basically, since the artifacts being taken is historical, then they may as well. We have a claim to them because the events that took place with these artifacts being taken is historical and sort of like it's our history too. So
Wow.
that was one of his things. And so then I found this absolutely priceless comment. Okay, so first there was a comment from somebody saying that like the empires that these things were taken from don't exist anymore. Like, yeah, they do.
Yeah, they do.
And so somebody said, I'm not justifying looting, I'm justifying not giving looted objects back. Okay, and that's some bizarre logic right there. A 3,000-year-old bust of Egypt's boy king of King Tut was auctioned off Thursday in London for nearly $6 million, despite claims by the Egyptian government that it was looted and smuggled out of the country. And that took place after the Arab Revolution. So, you know, I mean, one of the things that happens when countries get disrupted and are having revolutions is other people scoop in and steal artifacts and people. So, anyway, that's been going on for a while, and so. The head of Ethiopia's Amhara state and his advisor were killed during a coup attempt in their state that was orchestrated by its top general. And I think I may have talked about this before, but the person that did it has been shot dead, and a number of other plotters arrested. And so Ethiopia is still having these problems with ethnic clashes, and so more than 1 million people have been displaced by the clashes, and it's because of multiple causes, such as the weakening of the once all-powerful ruling and different groups trying to take advantage of opportunities presented by the political transition. So basically they're saying that, like, now that Ethiopia's society is more free under Abiy Ahmed, there's now more fighting because people are able to do it. That's always, and so that is like always that's an argument that dictators use, and this is just a comment explaining it, but it's just weird because that's one of the things that people claim, that dictators claim, that like, oh, they're keeping things stable. And I think, you know, and unfortunately, you know, that does happen. I mean, because people want power, and so when power is taken down, there's going to be other people fighting for it.
Right.
Basically. So, you know, what do you think would happen if we took down Trump?
That'd be lovely.
Yeah, but yeah. Okay, so Sudan has been having demonstrations for about six months, and a power sharing deal between the military and the citizens has been agreed upon. There's going to be an 11-member sovereign council, which will govern Sudan for 3 years before election, but it's going to be 5 members of the armed forces and 6 civilians. So that's what the issue has been all along. I mean, ever since ever since Omar al-Bashir stepped down, was okay, people want civilian rule. They don't want a military rule. So supposedly this is going to be a 3-year, this was a deal agreed upon. So hopefully this will be good. You know, seriously, I'm still trying to think, in Algeria, that was another rebellion we've been following. Tens of thousands of Algerians have taken to the streets to celebrate their country's independence from France and continue calls for a new democratic leadership in the wake of former President Abdelaziz Bouteflika's resignation in April. The elections have been postponed since then, and it's crazy because, remember we talked about how Bouteflika was part of the 1962 revolution, and another one of the leaders from there is in jail. This person's like in his 80s. I mean, revolutionary leaders in their 80s should not be in jail. That's just messed up. So that's Algeria. And so we've been following. I mean, Algeria is an interesting country. And so the other piece of news I have. Oh, okay. So this is a couple things. So one of the problems that is happening in China is Muslims are being oppressed, and it's the group is called the Uyghurs. That's what they're called. It's spelled completely differently. The only reason I know how to pronounce it is because of Mehdi Hassan, that journalist I like a lot, is because of listening to him. Mm-hmm. And so they are separating Muslim children from their families and sending parents to camps. They're being detained in giant camps. I think it's safe to call those concentration camps. And boarding schools are being built for the children. And so that reminds me that, basically that's what's happened to so many people. I mean, that was what happened to indigenous people in Canada and the United States. Boarding schools were built to take away their kids and have them, for them to be educated differently.
Right.
And so that's just wrong. And the Uyghurs are just, it's really pretty scary. So talking about kind of cultural issues, in France, a debate over Muslim women's clothing has re-entered the national conversation. And so, so there's a swimming garment called the burkini. And it is something that Muslim women wear to go swimming. And it's something or other that a very, very modest outfit to swim in, so they can get out and swim. And
right.
So the burkinis have been banned. That is so fucked up.
Yeah,
in
I'm
France.
gonna Google that just to see what those look like.
You're nasty.
Why are they nasty?
No, God, no.
Well, that's why I don't think they're
up.
gonna look there. I'm
Yeah.
just curious, what are they gonna have them swimming in?
Yeah, they
they want them completely clothed.
Well, basically, yeah. I mean, it kind of looks like it. They kind of look like a full body wetsuit, like what I would wear to go scuba diving. And with following so a group of 7 burkini clad swimmers entered a public pool defying a municipal ban. But okay, listen to this. The burkini has no place in France, where men and women are equal, said Eric Chotti, a member of the right-wing Republicans Party. So, okay, this is just not how it's supposed to work, okay? Men saying how women can dress is not what equality looks like to me. And there are plenty of issues with how Muslim women are treated. Yeah, look at that. That's like, so what? You could wear that to swim. I mean, it's like, say if you weren't
it's kind of how I pictured it to look.
Yeah. I mean, like some people like to be more covered up when they swim, to keep, even in pools and stuff, to keep, like, say, if people who have a hard time like staying warm want to be more covered up to swim. Like basically, if somebody just showed up wearing that in a pool to swim, you wouldn't be paying any attention. It's just because they know that it's a bikini, and that's just wrong. Like, no, I mean, freedom means you can wear what you want, including a bikini. And you know, if people have issues with, I mean, there's plenty of issues with how women are treated in Islam, and it's the wrong way to go about it to have other countries just make rules about what women can wear. You're just kind of doing the same thing, and like and there are Muslim women that are outspoken and choose to wear bikini, you know, and choose to cover themselves, and so there's that, and that is their right. And so then if you have, so that's their right. And then even if, you know, and there's women that don't want to be
I think the argument is weird because with us Americans, we try to control what people should do, and I understand both sides of that.
Yeah.
You know, because they've been doing it like that for years and centuries.
Yeah.
Where the woman has to cover their whole self.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit different on there, and just like when you see like I was talking to someone about, you know, how when you see on those commercials where they show like in other countries where they eat dogs.
Yeah.
A dog to them is like a cow.
Yeah.
Here, but over there, some of them think that a cow is like, oh, why would you eat a cow?
Yeah.
You know, and so, yeah, I don't know. To me, I think it's kind of a hard situation. I think we jump into as Americans, we tend to, like, if people aren't doing what we want them to do, it's kind of like, you know, we got to jump in. I think that's a weird situation. I think that's something they would have to figure out as a country on their own.
And this is also, it's also anti-Islamic because there's other religions where people are required to dress very modestly. I mean, Orthodox Jewish women aren't allowed to wear, a lot of them aren't allowed to wear bathing suits either. And right. So this isn't, and, you know, I mean, there's places where they've made, like, face veils illegal. And I can kind of understand that as, like, a little bit more, because that's, like, a societal standard. But, like, no. I mean, and if women are oppressed, you want women who are oppressed to be able to go out and participate in society as much as possible, so that if they want help, they can ask for it and they can get to know people. So that's just what's so wrong to me, because to me it's like, okay, if you say that women aren't allowed out wearing, like, burqas, then they're just going to stay home.
Right.
They're not going to not wear that thing to go out.
But so also look at their society, though.
Well, yeah, so you're just completely discriminating against them being able to get out and about in their society.
And it's like with them, they've been doing it for so long that, you know, I can't argue that they have to, it's kind of like how we were doing here. You have to, something's going to have to happen for them to change it for themselves.
Exactly.
Like us going in and saying, well, you shouldn't do that because we don't do that here. It's kind of like, you never win like that.
Yeah.
You know, because a lot of countries, like, we think they do stuff wrong, they think we do it wrong.
Exactly.
So you argue with what your beliefs are against other people's beliefs. It's just, that always causes more conflict than what it is.
I mean, there are Muslim feminists, there are Muslim women that are dealing with, that advocate for women in their culture, and we just need to follow their lead. People do not. So, okay, so then in Quebec recently passed a law barring civil servants, including teachers, from wearing religious symbols at work. Okay, so I read about this because there was a picture of the education minister of Quebec meeting with Malala Yousafzai. And, you know, she was the Pakistani woman who was a girl basically who was shot for promoting girls' education. Do you remember that? Yeah, she won the Nobel Prize, and she covers her head, and she moved to England. She goes to college now, and so Quebec had passed this fucking law which is like banning teachers, and we're not talking about like full like face garb, because I mean, teachers shouldn't be like that anyway.
Right.
Anyway, they're talking about just like headscarves.
Yeah,
And so they're banning people wearing those, and that also means, at least they're being consistent, which would ban Jewish men wearing yarmulkes. It's like, what? That's like somebody's, it's like shit. I mean, you have lunatics that are trying to take their freedom of religion to the level of like telling other people what to do with their bodies, and then you have, so I'm like, okay, this is legit, like, yes, this is impinging upon people's freedom of religion, and it's
Right.
not even just religion, it's culture. It's just that's how they
Right.
so
They just have to do like we did. They have to push the boundaries
yeah,
and fight to get it changed within their countries.
yeah,
It's
yeah, and
it never it still hasn't worked yet where we come there and it's gonna change.
yeah.
Like, okay, we go there, they're gonna change. They're not gonna change what they do. They have to want to change it.
Well, yeah, and so like in Canada, they're preventing women from like covering their heads with scarf. I mean, that's like,
Right.
look at Ilhan. That is just part of people's
Part of
culture, and really, so here they are. So he was getting criticized, and like, okay, well, here you are hanging with Malala, whereas she couldn't even get a job because she covers her head. Whereas we have Malala, who was like shot because she wanted to go to school and is now like an education activist and stuff. Like, okay, wow, it's like she wants to cover her head. That is her right.
should be her right.
Exactly. So that is, so that is just ridiculous. Like, and that should get
With everything you try to change, there's always going to be rebellion to it.
well,
Everything, and people have to. And I personally wouldn't care, but I'm just realizing like there's always people that don't like it. There's people that don't want it, and so it's going to be a fight sometimes.
well, yeah, but this is okay, and it's also like that's crazy. You're just okay. If you make love, you're eliminating a huge piece of the workforce if you're not going to allow. I mean, there's a lot of Muslims out there. If you're not going to allow women who wear like headscarves to work as teachers, you're just eliminating a whole lot of people.
Like we have Muslims that work at the prison.
Yeah.
Like guards.
Yeah.
They wear, I don't know what you call it, but they wear a scarf.
Yeah. Women or men?
Both. If you're Muslim,
Yeah.
you cool. If you want to wear it, I don't. The
Yeah.
guy I see, it's usually guys. I've
Yeah.
never seen a girl wear it, but the guys wear this scarf.
Yeah.
That's what they wear. I mean, there's no complaint about it, but I'm just saying, religious-wise, they just wear it because they choose to wear it.
Yeah, I mean, and it's an issue with, it was an issue in the military because like there's religions where people, like there's the Sikhs and they're not supposed to shave, and so there was, and then people in the military are supposed to be clean shaven, but then there was Sikhs don't have to because it's their freedom of religion.
Right.
And it's the thing of like yeah, I mean, so long as your people need to be able to practice their religion freely until it impinges on other people, and that's when you get into cases like no, you don't get to not write a then you have those people that are like not wanting to issue marriage license because they don't believe in gay marriage. Like, well, no, you don't have the right to do that because you're impinging on someone else.
Right.
But like, yeah, or like what are they gonna like tell people not to wear crosses or something? I mean, people have a right to do that.
Have you seen? There's a movie that I just was told about called My Best. What is it? My Best Enemy. or something like that, and it's with it's called My Best Enemy. I just saw it last night, and it was about this lady in South Carolina, and it was with Taraji P. Henson.
Oh, is it the one where she was? Is it the one? Is it the one where she makes friends with the Ku Klux Klan guy?
Something like that. Yeah, that's the one. That was something.
Was it good?
It was pretty good.
Really, you liked it?
Well, yeah. At the beginning of the movie was like crazy.
Yeah.
Because she was, they whatever housing area they were living in.
Yeah.
They weren't giving the black people hot water.
Yeah.
And they were turning off their lights, like just turn off their electricity and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so they had a council meeting, and every time she would have a council meeting, this one guy would always turn his chair around like he doesn't want to look at her. Just, and she got mad and walked up there and turned his chair around and said she was gonna listen to it. It was just funny. It was just funny, and like and in a weird way, her and the Klan guy were like alike. They both were very outspoken. I didn't like the Klan guy because what he was outspoken for was just crazy.
Yeah.
Like, so someone burnt down the black kids' school. So the kids, they were trying to tell the kids that they'd have to go to school in the gym. And, they didn't want their kids going to school in the gym. They wanted to integrate it and have the kids go to school with the white kids. Of course, the white people didn't want that.
Right.
So the Ku Klux Klan guy, he jumps into it. And so they have this meeting at this dining hall, and it was just funny about this one part how they were talking about how, black kids was like, we could still sing our gospel there. And then the white people didn't like it because they wanted to listen to their Dixie music.
Yeah.
And they wanted to play they called them Klan something. They had Klan songs that they wanted to be able to play, and they thought that if they were there, they couldn't do it. And it was just a crazy movie altogether, but it was kind of funny because Taraji just wasn't playing.
I saw the previews for it.
You should see it. It's a movie you would like.
You think?
Yeah, I know you would.
Yeah.
Taraji was no joke.
Yeah.
She was no joke.
Mm.
But that's how people are. Everybody wants their thing to do it, and then when you impede upon their thing, then they gotta fight to keep it.
Yeah. Yeah. So how was your union meeting?
It was pretty good. I guess they're talking about because we're supposed to get like a raise.
Mm-hmm.
But we might be getting a raise starting 2020, and also they're talking about something about giving us like a 5% cost of living thing every year.
Oh, that's cool.
So it seemed pretty decent. It seemed like a good meeting.
So you weren't in a union already?
I am in the union. I just never been to a union.
Oh, you just never been to a union meeting?
Yeah, you have to be in a union.
Yeah.
I just never been in a union.
It's like for state employees, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of jobs that sometimes you just have to be in a union.
But I mean, there's different unions.
There is different
what I'm saying,
unions.
But so yours is like as a state employee, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. As an engineer, under the engineers, yeah.
Yeah.
It's under state employees. So, but I've never been to a union. I just never tripped off. But this one, I went to.
Yeah.
Everybody said, "Oh, you should go." So I said, "All right, I'll go."
Yeah.
So.
Well, that's cool. I mean, there's a lot of. I mean, shit. There's a lot of history. I mean,
You ever thought about working for the state?
Yeah. I mean, I did before when I worked at a hospital. When I worked at a hospital, it was a state. I was a state employee, and I was yeah. So yeah, I think I was in the union for state employees there, but that union didn't do shit for us because we were like the low paid end of the state employees and stuff. But I mean, I was still proud. I mean, it was cool. So yeah, that was not, I mean, it was nice to have, I don't know, kind of to have everything be so spelled out.
Right.
That's kind of what I appreciated because I'd worked in a lot of like nonprofits and stuff, and so, there's a lot of places where you can work where it's all, I mean, every place has drama, but in some nonprofits and stuff, like there's no policies, nothing is straightforward. So I appreciated that with working for the state hospital, where it's like, okay, you make this in this category, and
That's it.
yeah,
That's what I like too.
yeah,
Not too much argument.
yeah,
Besides, whatever, little stuff. But it's like overall, I didn't know the state was that good until I started working. I was like,
yeah,
not bad. It's a good retirement.
yeah,
Good place to retire from.
yeah, and you get vacation time, and
Oh, yes. I think about 120 hours now.
really,
Yeah, I've only been there for about 2 years, so
uh-huh.
by the end of this year, I'll probably have about 140, 50 hours, maybe.
Well, cool. Where are you gonna go on vacation?
I don't know. I'm not gonna, I'm gonna be I'm gonna try to save it up a lot.
Yeah,
Then when I get to a point, because I think, I was told you only can max out to about 240.
yeah,
And then once I max it out, I'm gonna start taking vacations.
yeah,
So it'll start adding up. So.
yeah. Well, you can go visit like all these great places that we talk about at Global History Night.
Oh yeah, hey, it might happen. It just might happen.
Yeah, yeah,
I'm gonna get everybody right down here first. Once I'm comfortable, then I'll start doing that.
yeah, yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. One of the things have changed a lot for unions over the years because the idea was to represent people against profits.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when it was the idea, so like you don't have people working like 7 days a week, 16 hours a day, and all that. But it's kind of an interesting concept. I mean, unions have changed so much over the years because now there are laws and standards about those things.
Right.
And so, like in the 1930s, when a lot of laws were being passed, with laws to limit child labor, laws to limit the working day, and all of that. Unions were actually against that because it was taking away their power.
Right.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, I can see that.
Well, yeah. I mean, yeah.
But to me, they have a lot. I don't know how much power they had back in the 30s. They probably had more.
They had absolute power.
But I still think right now they're still pretty up there in my position. The way I see it.
Not like they were. Because they were like the only thing.
Yeah.
They were the only thing people had. There were no laws about how people, and now there's like, there's laws now that prevent discrimination. Yeah. I mean, there's like, and now, back in the day, there was no like HR departments or anything
HR
like that.
To me is bull.
Well,
I hate it. I'm sorry. I'm gonna say this.
Go ahead.
I had a job before. I don't like HR.
Yeah.
HR to me is like if you were sick or you hurt yourself and going to a doctor that your company makes you go to. Just think about it like that.
Well, that's not what it means.
To me, it's like that, though.
But that's not what that means.
That's
not
what
an HR.
Difference.
No, you have that mixed up. You have it mixed
yes,
up with insurance.
Yes, it is. Yeah, but no,
not.
It's the same concept. To me, when you go to HR feels like they're for the company. Just like when you go to the doctor when you hurt yourself, but you don't go to your doctor, but they have you go to their doctor.
But that's just two different things. You're talking about the difference between insurance companies.
Yeah, but it's the
same. But that doesn't have anything to do with HR. Insurance companies, like
they both are the doctors. The doctor is the doctor for the company.
Aren't.
The HR is the HR for the company.
Doctors aren't. I mean,
yes, they are.
If you go to the doctor, you're just going to.
No, it's not. Not if you hurt yourself at a job.
Oh,
you got to go to two jobs.
Well, that's it's a work-related injury.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay,
that's how HR. That's how HR is to me. HR is
that's just one thing that HR does.
No, but I'm saying HR is a version of that. To me, they seem like they veer more towards the company than towards the employee.
Well, you're talking about one thing. You're talking about workers' comp.
I'm talking about both. But to me, Me personally, they're both they both work the same.
But
They're different, but they work the same.
okay, so I mean, you can see why if you're going out on workers' comp, the company that does have something to do with the company because
Right.
that's their money. I mean, HR is also where you go to, like, say if somebody's hassling you at your job, you go to HR. If you're having like problems, you go to
You
HR.
can, but depending on the situation,
Well, of
they
course.
seem to kind of veer towards the company.
But if
you go to your union, the union kind of goes
But a lot of
and looks
places
at both sides of the situation.
but at a lot of places they don't have unions.
Well, I'm just telling you.
A lot of places
I'm just
have-
saying why I like
I mean,
unions.
At a state job, you have both. A lot of places will only
Yeah.
have like an HR. I'm also just talking about the concept too. I mean, like there are some places that have HR departments. Like now, companies have or organizations have, a personnel manager or something. There's somebody you can go to try and get help with problems.
Yeah.
And if because it's not necessarily problems with the company. I mean, comparing it to the past, you had no one. Nothing. Workers had nobody to go to. Nobody to talk to. If you had a problem, it was just too bad.
I just think depending on your company, I don't think HR is that much
Well,
of
of
help
course
either.
it's depending on your. Of course it's depending on the company, but
I like union. I mean, I wish most places. I think almost every place should have a union.
Well, they should, but see the difference between okay, so this is something that one of my friends this was one of my brother's ideas, and my brother is huge on unions. Huge. He's real good on union. He knows a lot about union history and he's a plaintiff's attorney. I mean, what he does is represent workers. He represents people whose jobs made them use asbestos. That's what he does. So, but he was talking about another friend of ours who's in government who has problems with the teachers' unions. And I was like, what? He has problems with the teachers' unions? And so my brother said that the concept of, originally the concept of a union was supposed to balance the goodwill, the interests of people, the interests of workers against the interests of profits. But if you're working for the state, like at your job, it's for fair treatment. It's not so they can like make you work more so they can make more money. So that's just the kind of the difference between.
I see what you're saying on that.
Yeah.
But I've worked at a job where they didn't have a union, and dealing with the HR just was they were slick because when you have to deal with the HR, it's their HR.
Well, yeah, and
that kind of
yeah.
I didn't like that too much.
But back in the day, they didn't even have that.
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. I mean, there's somebody you can go to for help now, and if that if that doesn't work, you can go try and find an employment lawyer or something.
Yeah.
But there's laws now, there's policies, and so you can say that. That's why. There's companies that say that, that's what, like say, then you have places like Amazon and Walmart that won't let people unionize. And companies like that should totally have unions and don't because they're trying to make a profit.
Like I was hearing about Tesla. I don't know if Tesla has unions though.
What about them?
They started doing, because that they ran into trouble. They weren't able to. Something about they weren't able to make all the cars they were supposed to make.
Mm-hmm.
They were having issues with their cars, and so I know people who worked there. They started getting rid of people for nothing and making up excuses to get rid of them for nothing.
And so they didn't.
And I don't think they had a union because they couldn't do nothing about it.
Yeah.
They had HR, but
well, that's different. Yeah. So that's what I mean. So that's
to me it was like, well. What did HR really do?
No.
Just listen to them grieve and then tell them, well, you still gotta, there's not much you can do about it.
Yeah,
I mean, that's why I'm saying, with
cases.
HR to me is just like.
So that's why it's even more important to have unions for when you're trying to balance the needs of profit that was
And
the
that makes
idea.
sense. That makes sense.
And I was just listening to a segment about like places where people, about match factories in the 19th century, and those were some of the first union. You know, I mean, you like think about like the coal miners and stuff like
Right.
that. You know, I mean, that could be. I mean, you know, the unions were doing things like making. You know, I mean, before there was unions, they could just send people that. You know, they unions are to make sure people have like protective equipment
Right.
and to make sure that people can take breaks.
And you know what though? Technically, you don't really even like the way that they made the laws now. You don't have to have a union for protective equipment.
No.
Like if a company didn't have a union, they didn't have protective equipment, and you did something, and you were supposed to have it, they're screwed.
Yeah,
The company
and you
is
can
screwed.
thank the unions for that because,
Right.
and again, like that's just why unions have changed because there didn't used to be any, you know,
Right.
it used to be if you didn't have
yeah.
a union,
They can
there
do
was
whatever they
nothing
want.
to protect you.
Right. Well, yeah, that stuff like that. PPE,
Yeah,
they can. You know what PPE is, right? Personal protective equipment. That's
Yeah.
the word. Yeah, yeah. PPE is like a thing. If someone gets hurt and they didn't have PPE and they wanted it and they did something, well,
Yeah.
that company is screwed.
yeah,
You can't even. That's not even a fightable thing in court. You will lose. You kind of see the Roundup guy. That's a prime example.
yeah, yeah. But I mean, but it's interesting. So you know, I mean, it's certainly a big. I mean, unions are a big deal. Are a big deal for teachers, and real big deal. And you know, but it was. I mean, there was some seriously.
I mean,
brave
think about
people.
all these teachers. Do you think they could have done it with just HR, without a union?
Well, no, that's.
You know, they could have went to HR until they.
But that's not what
I know what you're saying.
I'm talking about the
I know what you're
concept
saying.
of it. Like, say if you, I mean, there didn't used to be like
There wasn't anything back
there
then.
was nothing whatsoever, and it can also be like, say if you're sick or say if you need to like take time off or something, or like that'll be, or like say, okay, one of the things that didn't there like now there's laws for people with disabilities in the workplace, and
Right.
so HR is a sort of, you know, people are being you know, not only are people being discriminated, you know, I mean that's also where somebody would go to get help with their
Right.
disability, and you know, say if you're having a problem with another coworker,
Right.
so you know, like yeah, of course there's it's a problematic thing, but it's something. It's the concept of it,
Right.
and you know, there used to be nothing whatsoever.
Right. True.
So, yeah. Okay, so we have that, and okay, the union strong, man. Okay.
Do you know if they ever found whatchamacallit's body yet?
Who's?
Who's the union guy, the non-union guy?
Oh, Jimmy Hoffa?
Yeah.
No.
That's kind of funny to me sometimes.
Yeah. Some of the people where I used to work were just really would take a lot of time off work and stuff, and I just used to be like, you know, John Brown died for you. I mean, there were people that would really take advantage of policies and stuff. So,
Right.
well, happy birthday to Evie, my god-granddaughter, turns 3.
Nice. Happy birthday,
Happy
Evie.
birthday. Oh my god, you're so cute. There was grandfather posted a picture of her wailing on a piñata.
Nice. One of these
Yeah.
days, if they ever come down to see you, we gotta definitely do a show that day.
Oh, I know, that would be
Have
really
them all come
fun.
through.
Yeah, they live someplace really cool now. No, I'm not sure when I'm going to go up to Seattle next, but definitely got to see them. Okay, and so then, well, the other night I was at a city council meeting talking about, you know, they were trying to figure out rent control, rent stabilization, because a company came in and bought a couple apartment complexes here in Vallejo and doubled people's rent.
Wow.
Doubled it. So it's kind of a case. And so then, so another friend of mine was like, well, private prop people have a right. You can't just tell people what to do for their property. He was talking about being an individual and like letting somebody rent a room in his house. I was like, well, no, they can't tell you that. But yeah, exactly, it is different. But one of the points that I really wanted to make to them was like, okay, they were making it all about this particular scenario where a lot of people were on fixed income, and it's like, okay, well, obviously, that's messed up. But nobody could have. I mean, what would you do if your rent doubled? Nobody can manage their rent doubling. Nobody.
It wouldn't even be worth it. I might try to get a house.
Exactly.
I'm paying almost $1,000 something now.
Yeah.
Two. That just wouldn't even.
Yeah. Well, most people would. I mean, but what I'm saying is like a lot of people, if your rent suddenly doubled, I mean, a lot of people would become homeless. I mean, you know, even if you had a job or.
Right. You just get. You're messed off.
Yeah.
Or you know what I'd have to do real quick is live in one of the motels and just put my stuff in storage and live out of a motel for 2 or 3. You know how they pay to live. I don't know how they can. Yeah, that's.
Yeah, so nobody can manage it. I was like, I was talking. My dad has plenty of money, but I was, he lives in a nice place. I was like, well, yeah, what would you do? They told you had to pay twice as much.
But does your dad rent or does he have his own house?
It's like no, he doesn't rent. He lives in like a supported living, supported living.
Yeah, he'd be all right then.
Well, not if he was suddenly charged twice as much to live where he lives.
They don't do that.
Well, no, I'm saying it's the principle that, like, even if you do have it, so if you make it all about poor people not being able to handle their rent being doubled, well, obviously, but you also need to make it. You also need to make it about everybody, because if that happened, a lot of people would become homeless.
But you know how it is. They only make specialties for 2 classes, either the rich or the poor. When you're in the middle, it just don't seem like you get much of a break.
Well, no.
I'm in the middle. I make good enough to live, but not good enough to where they're not going to keep stacking up and making me pay rent upon rent.
Well, yeah. So that's why there needs to, there needs to be policies for that. Exactly. It's called rent stabilization. And it's kind of I'm real big on like liberty and individual liberty and all that, but it's the idea that there needs to be rules and regulations for the greater good, and that the cities or states that they have a vested interest, that they have the right to have some stability. Like if they went through and say if they like doubled the rent of everybody in your apartment building, you'd have a bunch of people like out on the streets or whatever.
I'd be staying in the motel for a little bit, find something else.
Well, yeah, but like a lot of, you're more together than a lot of people. I mean, and so then you have, so like say a lot of people, if they had to leave their homes, they'd lose their jobs. And so it's just a major descent down. Like my friend who was my neighbor in my old place, we're friends, and, she's like a single woman, she works really hard, she's like just making it, if her rent got doubled, I mean, what'd she do? And that's kind of how most people are kind of like living paycheck to paycheck. I mean, and, even if you have, like, say, even if you aren't on, people have like car payments and stuff like that. You can't just like double something.
Right?
It's crazy.
I didn't know they were allowed to just double it, but
yeah. Well, what they
like here they do it like $75 a year. So I mean, at least it's reasonable.
Yeah.
I still think it's a lot.
That is a lot,
but I'd rather be $75 than next year it's $1,000.
Well, right. Well, what they did, like, it should be a percentage, and so, they just made an emergency moratorium on rents being raised over 10%. So, and they have to renew it like every 30 days. So because there's like a whole bunch of senior citizens in these apartments and people on fixed incomes, and so some of them were like a couple people already moved, and then because they're supposed to like give moving assistance or something. So I mean, it's like what happens in San Francisco. A new person will come in and like double the rent, and but there's so they need to try and get some of this under control.
Right.
You could say that like the state and the government has like a responsibility. It's a responsibility to have some sort of protection for people. I mean, kind of like kind of like the Italian government, like using a warship to block a rescue boat.
Right.
I'm gonna send that to my brother, man, because he has a boat, so he would really appreciate. Man, that is some real good that's some real good boat driving, man. This chick's badass. So, so we were doing so today we had a Friday. We were on a Friday instead of a Tuesday, but we are generally on the first and third Tuesdays.
Yes, we tried to do the first one. I'm the one that's messing it up, everybody. The DJ is messing it up.
Well, the DJ is a working man.
That's one thing I like about Anna. She at least doesn't give me a hardship with it. Some people do, but she understands, so that's good.
I'm not paying you.
Yeah,
seriously, it's like
I like doing it. It's not
exactly.
That's what I'm saying. I actually like doing it. But, you know what I'm saying? Money's gonna come first. That's just how it goes.
Exactly. Okay, everybody. So we'll be back pretty soon on the third Tuesday. Okay.
So the third Tuesday will be not this week coming up, but next week, the 16th.
Yes. Yes.
All right.
Cool. Okay. Happy birthday, Evie.
Happy birthday,
Evie. Okay. Good night, everybody. See you soon.